Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am excited for my conversation today with Jessa Spainhower. She is the founder and CEO of a company by the name of Sauna, which we will get into today. It is a multi-garment steam cleaner used to skip trips to the dry cleaner and leave the iron stowed away. She is also a co-founder of a company called A Stellar Co., which is a business guide consultancy for strategic planning. Jessa is passionate about working with small businesses to define their North Star, solve problems, and maintain their trajectory towards transformational goals. Welcome to the show today, Jessa.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Well, let's dive in. I'm excited to talk about Sauna and the work you're doing at A Stellar Co. But before we get to that, take us back. We want to learn about you and your background. Talk a bit about where you're from, some of the early educational college choices you made, and then take us along your career path.
Great. Well, it's a very easy story to tell because it was not strategic at all, which maybe that's why I like to do strategy now. But I grew up in Missouri and I went to school there. I went to Northwest Missouri State University, and I actually started my freshman year at University of Missouri. And my social life was very, very active and my academic life was not. And so I transferred to a smaller school, and I was just really aimless. I know that you had to go to college to do whatever you want in life, but I didn't really know what to do or why to do it. And so I was just taking classes that sounded interesting. And finally, my academic advisor told me I needed to declare a major. And he said, well, you're closest to marketing. I'm like, all right. He's like, you take a few more classes, you can get a business management degree as well. I'm like, okay, I'm in no rush. So anyway, that's how I got into marketing and business management. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very keen student back in the day. But because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I ended up studying abroad in London. After my final semester, I stayed on for a few more months, and there I met someone who said, hey, let's move to San Diego after graduation. I said, okay. And I moved out here. I didn't have a job. I had nothing. I had a few $100s. I shared a room with the girl that I drove out here with at some shack in PV and, like this beach community. And I just got a job. I'm like, I just need a job. And so flash forward many years, but those were basically my 20s. And I took another I took another trip to London when I was 30. And at this point, I was just spent time traveling. And when I of course came back to San Diego, because once you leave, you realize you immediately need to come back. And then I learned, okay, I need to be more strategic with my career. I need to make decisions. I need a job that I care about, that gets me excited to go to every day. And that really helped me in strategically job searching at that point. And I found a great job with this environmental consulting company. And I started off pretty low in the company and I rose up to a vice president position. And so probably I still work with that company in the last 5 years, like really running the business management of it. And that's when I learned, oh my gosh, I love business strategy. I love planning. I love solving problems. I was doing operations. So there was a new problem every day. Problems I could never even imagine came up. And anyway, so after working there for a while, I kind of realized that I wanted to do more and work with more companies. I'd been working with friends on the side with their business. And that's ultimately what led me to found A Stellar Co. with my business partner. She and I both met while working together at that company and had a similar philosophy and approach on business planning. And working with small businesses, it's so difficult. It's the saying, see the forest for the trees, because there's so much to do and you're doing so much day to day to do the work, to grind. And anyway, I'm realizing I'm totally going off. I like
no, you're good. Well, I want to, no, it's all good. So I want to, before we get to all that good stuff, I want to spend a little more, no, it's okay. I want to spend a little more time on your background. So you were working for some big commercial real estate brands, CoStar, Colliers International, as a research analyst, research associate, managing a portfolio of properties. And you did that for a little while before you went over to Great Ecology and, moved into more operations. Did you feel like those jobs, I mean, you mentioned this, a few minutes ago, that you kind of just got a job, because you're landed back in San Diego and you need work. Was that something that you just kind of fell into? And then how did you transition from that role over to Great Ecology?
Yes, I glossed over that. It's, I think, a psychological thing at this point where I've just blocked it out. But I met a lot of really awesome people working at those jobs, and I just fell into it. When CoStar was my very first job when I moved to San Diego out of college, and I just needed a job. It was great entry level. They had very good benefits. At the time, I met a lot of people that I'm still connected with 15 years later very closely. And it was just the world I fell into. It's commercial real estate. And I loved the research and analytics part of it. It was really fun to tell stories with the numbers and learn about kind of the movers and shakers, like who was building what and what tenant was moving in and who was growing, expanding, who was closing. But at the end of the day, there was just none of that passion and purpose. Like I just didn't care. And, I worked with some really fun people, but I just getting up and like going to do the same thing every day, day in and day out, was not motivating for me.
Yeah.
And some people, I think it's a great job because you like the structure and stability. And for me, I've just realized that's not where I thrive.
Yeah, no, I can certainly see that and understand that. Did you have a passion around sustainability at that point? And that's what drew you to Great Ecology?
I did. I think I always just knew sustainability was, it was good. I didn't know a lot about it. I was very interested in it. And at the time, what got me out of this is when I had moved to London the second time, and I went there, I guess it was only 3 or 4 months, but I wasn't working for 6 months. And I was just traveling. And that's when I got really purposeful about my search. And that ultimately is what led me to Great Ecology was, okay, well, I don't have a skill set. I'm not like an environmental scientist, but I can work and help the environmental scientists like do their job better.
Got it. Awesome. Well, let's transition over to, you've spent over 8 years with the company. I know you're, still continuing to work with them in some capacity, but I want to get to your 2 startups. And you may not call a Stellar Co. a startup anymore. I mean, Hera Hub celebrating our 10 years and I still call it a startup. So I don't know at what point you get to not call it a startup anymore, but so you met your business partner, Laurel, at Great Ecology. And so how did you guys decide, hey, we're going to go start this new business together, a Stellar Co.?
So correct. Laurel and I met at Great Ecology, and she and I were on the executive leadership team, and we did a lot of planning we do a lot of strategic planning together and a lot of meeting prep. And she and I just were in a lot of alignment on the process that we would have liked to follow. And so she and I were just kind of talking about our career growth and, what was the next step, what was beyond this. And at this point, I'd been with the company for, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years, and I'd really outgrown my position there. And I shouldn't say that. I excelled in that position and I wanted to look for something beyond that. And Laurel was finding her entrepreneurial spirit as well. And her background is in science and sustainability, and mine is in business. And so we kind of brought those together, talking about some ideas, and realized like, hey, we could do this together. We can work with businesses to work on their strategic planning, to incorporate sustainable aspects into that plan, and to focus on all stakeholders. And we didn't know it at the time, but we are really interested in stakeholder capitalism, also called conscious capitalism. And we got connected to Tory Project, which was a very pivotal moment for us and our growth. And as you're saying, when are you not a startup? It's such a good question. I feel like I'm always going to feel like a startup.
Right? I just feel like it's the nature of being a small business. I don't know.
Yeah.
And explain to our listeners what the Tory Project is, please.
Tory Project is a business boot camp, and it's focused on teaching the tenets of stakeholder capitalism. It's a 4-week course, and it's of course all virtual and online, but it's led by David Farron. It's a nonprofit, and they really just want to teach businesses how to basically not get screwed over, and to teach them the pitfalls and ways that you can do business and make money without, laying off people, like how to equitably run a business and to legally protect yourself in doing so.
That's great. That's awesome. So if you don't mind, and I want to get to shirt Sauna here, don't worry, we'll get over there. But just staying on A Stellar Co. for a bit, talk a little bit about your podcast, the Orion Podcast. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about the inception of that, who you interview, and then maybe give us an example of a client that you've worked with during your work at A Stellar Co.
So we have Orion Podcast, and it's a weekly podcast where we connect knowledge and resources to live a more conscious form of capitalism. And we interview businesses, business owners who are doing good, or resources for businesses to do good, and really try to drive a message to consumers as well, that we have the power with our purchasing to bring awareness to issues like vote with your dollars, basically. And it really, at the end of the day, it all comes down to awareness. If you don't know about things, how can you act differently? And so that's the goal of our podcast. And it's available on all the platforms, little plug. And we actually started it 2 years ago. When we started A Stellar Co. very early on, we decided we wanted to start a podcast, and we were at San Diego Startup Week, and they had these free mentor sessions. And we met with one of the guys, I believe he was an original co-founder of GoFundMe. And when we were telling him we had literally just decided to start our business. Like, I think we had maybe incorporated like for 3 weeks. and he was saying, we've got to put out content. And we're like, oh my gosh, the thought of sitting down and writing a blog. And that's when we're like, let's do a podcast. And yeah, now I think we just recorded our 55th episode.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Definitely check out the Orion Podcast. I know you've had a few folks on from Hera Hub as well, some of our community members as well. Give us an example, maybe a bit of a short case study of a client that you've worked with over the last couple of years.
Yes, thank you. I was like, I knew there was something else I was supposed to answer. I'm trying to think of. So one is someone I actually was recently talking about, which is Eco Chateau. They are a spot in San Diego. We love them. We love their mission, the work they're doing. And we actually with them, we did an exchange of services. And we spoke with them very early on, because when we started our business, we were like, well, who do we want to work with? And we just wrote a list of companies that we really liked, and we liked their mission, and we reached out to them. And so they helped us very early on kind of do our proven concept, I guess, of business. And then in exchange, we got spa packages, which is great. I'm like, that's what I want to spend my money on.
Exactly.
Yeah. And with them, just to, I guess, add a little bit to that case study, is that we started working with them pre-pandemic, and pandemic happened, everything kind of changed. And then when we were working with them on a strategic plan, the owner was understandably frustrated. He understood the laws be like changing, but things would be open one day and then you would hear things were reopening, but you didn't know if that was true. And so they always kind of had to be on their toes. And the message that we worked on them with was, well, you still need to be ready. Just be like, we still need a strategic plan for when that time happens, and to work with your team that there is a plan, even though there's so much uncertainty right now. So I think that's something that just really highlights the importance of strategic planning, is when there's so much uncertainty and you don't know what's going to happen, in terms of the pandemic or anything, like anything can throw you for a loop. And so having a strategic plan as a roadmap to think about the big picture and what's important when things come up out of your control in the short term.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, with the pandemic, goodness grief. I felt so bad for all these businesses, spas, restaurants. To your point, it's one day you're open, the next day you're closed. How do you staff? I mean, so much uncertainty over the last year. Yeah. And it's so interesting that you bring them up as a case study, because I think this, right? That the Eco Chateau was started by a Hera Hub member, Christine McDaniel.
Yes. I just found that out recently though, at the Hera Hub happy hour.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah. So small world. And Christine, I do a video series called Women Who Exit, and had Christine on that particular interview series. She's now sold, I think it's like 7 companies, and she's all of like 37 years old.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and Eco Chateau was one of the more recent companies she founded and sold then to your now client.
Oh, that's so cool.
It comes full circle. Yeah, we used to do a trade with Christine at Eco Chateau. So thank you for putting us back in touch, and we'll definitely continue.
They were on my mind. Yeah.
No, it's absolutely perfect. Well, I want to get to Sauna, make sure that we have time to talk about that. Talk about the inception of this product and where you're at and where you're going with it.
Thank you. So when I was back at this job, where I literally just call it a job, in my 20s, I did not like my job. And I thought, and back then, and I think a lot of people have this at some point, where like, I just want to create something. I want to start a business. I want to start a product, because, to kind of get out of a rut. And at the time I sat down, I'm like, what do I hate doing? And I hate ironing. I hate ironing so much. When I was a child, I was probably 12 or 13, and my mom was like, okay, you're old enough, you can iron. And I literally ironed over my hand.
Oh,
I mean, I was fine, but I had a few teeny scars. So, I mean, they're gone now. But anyway, I had some marks. So after that, my mom was like, okay, you don't need to iron anymore. And I just never did. And as an adult, I just stopped. So anyway, very long genesis story of like where this came to is like, okay, what if there was a steamer where you just hung up a shirt, you could walk away, go do something else, and your shirt is steamed? That's shirt sauna. So I came up with the idea almost 10 years ago. And I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to make anything. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a designer. I literally had no clue. And so over the years, I did a little bumbling and testing and market research, and fast forward to when Laurel and I were starting a Seller Co. and really building up our networks and branching out into the startup community. I was in a meeting with someone and I told them this idea, and this person who's now my partner in Shirt Sauna, Brian, who said, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And here we are. So we have been working on this. We started pre-pandemic. So had a lot of downtime to work on some of the business planning, but in short, with Shirt Sauna, to repeat, it's a clothing steamer. It steams up to 5 pieces of clothing at one time, and it's collapsible. So it collapses down to about the size of a small carry-on, and then it pops up into a stand. You hang your garments, push a button, walk away, it steams and dries it, and you can do whatever else you want with your time. So it saves you time, ideally saves money if you can do that in lieu of dry cleaning, and you don't have to iron, and it's not active time. So we are working on a crowdfunding launch. We're going to launch on Indiegogo. I'm hoping in May. I feel like every month I'm like, okay, next month. And there's as we know in business, there's always surprises and setbacks. Everything costs more money than you think and takes longer than you think. And I am experiencing that every day. So the plan is to launch in May on Indiegogo.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And talk a little bit about, just that process of sourcing manufacturing and all of that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we need another podcast for that, but
I know, right?
I mean,
we'll have you come back on after you've gotten through the process and raised the money, and then you can share.
Yes.
I just had Nicole McDonald on again the other day. Her episode will be coming out again shortly to specifically talk about her $1 million Kickstarter campaign, because she has so much knowledge to share on that. So we'll have you back once you're done. But
yeah,
give us the highlights on the.
I look forward to following in her footsteps. I've
Yes.
heard a lot of wonderful things and listened to her podcast as well. So really, when I first started, I think this is really important to learn, is that I was very cautious about who I shared this idea with. And then I got to a point where I was basically thinking, whatever, all I want is a shirt, Sauna. I don't care who makes it. And it takes so much time and energy to bring something to market that is really, really hard for someone to steal your idea. Yeah. There's certain circumstances, but the more I started sharing my idea, the more help I got. And I just started to talk to everyone I knew and start asking questions like, how do I get this made? What do I do? And I'm trying to make this somewhat short, but I connected with a friend. She was my college roommate back in Missouri. She's been in supply chain and logistics for 15 years. She sent me to this database. She's like, look for products that are being imported that are similar to what you want to make. So I was looking for irons and steamers and who was importing them and the names of the manufacturers on the shipping labels. And that's kind of backed me into some contacts. And then the same friend put me in touch with some sourcing consultants, and through them, one of them just randomly sent me an email out of the blue that was like, is this what you're looking for? And it was very, very close to what I wanted, shirt Sauna. And he was not working for us. I had put the idea out there, not being afraid that he was going to steal it. And he came to me, never paid him. I'll probably never talk to this guy again. And not in a bad way. I just forgot about him, honestly, till right now. I should email him. And we just hustled and got in touch with the manufacturer. They were not responding to our emails. I mean, they don't know, who we are, and they're based in China, and we couldn't get over there because of the pandemic. And so just really the persistence and working every single connection and contact I think I've ever made in my life is how I got this to where it is now.
That's amazing. So they were manufacturing a similar product, and you then worked with them to change the design based on what you had in mind. Is that right?
Yes, okay. Exactly. And, to add to that, I had talked to some other manufacturing consultants who wanted to help us for equity share. And when we started talking to them about the timeline and the cost to make this from nothing, we were looking at around $500,000 in 1 year to get to just a proof of concept or MVP.
Yep.
So that to me was like, I think the best takeaway is find someone who's already making something that's close to what you want to make or has same components, because the tooling it's just so expensive.
Yeah. Impossible almost feels like impossible. Yeah. Because to even get to a crowdfunding campaign, ideally you have a decent proof of concept, especially because this product is going to be in the range of what price range?
So the MSRP is $349.
Okay.
And we have a launch day special. The VIPs is $199. And then I think the launch day is $229. And another fun fact of manufacturing that I'm learning is the cost of materials fluctuates every day. And there's a big thing going on in the manufacturing world where there's a chip shortage because of the pandemic, which is affecting all electronics.
Oh gosh.
So that's a fun thing. So we're putting it out there with price. I don't know if we'll make any money about these chips, but
Jessa, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a big venture to get into. Cause to your point, the cost of materials and manufacturing all the way in China. And then even when you get it on the boat, how many delays can there be? And then it gets stuck in, customs.
Or the Suez Canal, apparently.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's why you need a strategic plan coming back around to all this.
Exactly. Well, you are your own customer in that regard. So that is great. Well, I will definitely push this out, again, when your crowdfunding campaign comes out. But if folks want to get in touch with you in the meantime, they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Shirtsauna.com. All the emails come to me, or I'm also on LinkedIn and very active on there as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jess. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and learning more about your background.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.